am Michelle Chalfant, psychotherapist, holistic life coach, and human just like you, learning to navigate life's challenges. With over 25 years experience, I teach people how to get healthy using the adult chair model. The adult chair model is where simple psychology meets grounded spirituality, and it teaches us how to become healthy adults. From anxiety and depression to codependency and relationship issues, you can use the adult chair for just about anything. Each week, I share practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and a wide range of experts on how to get unstuck, how to live authentically, and how to truly love yourself, all while sitting in your adult chair. Welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast, where we talk all about living as emotionally healthy humans. Actually, we talk about how to become an emotionally healthy human, too. And today on the show, we had Dr. Jeremy Goldberg, and he is going to help us do just that. If you don't know his name, you might know his social handles, which are long distance love bombs. He is incredible. And he talks all about living with and putting out into the world, paying it forward, I should say, kindness, and how kindness can truly change your life. What's crazy is it changed his. One random act of kindness completely changed the trajectory of his entire life. His career completely changed. Wait till you hear his story. He might be one of the most interesting humans I've ever talked to. It was so fun to talk to him. We talked all about being human and how hard it can be, but how we can also find peace. We talked about sadness, how you can change limiting beliefs. We talked about God and soul and how you should not be striving for happiness. Yep, you heard me right. We talked about so many incredible things. He really is an incredibly smart and raw and authentic human being. It was such a joy to have him on the show. We had an incredible conversation around, so many things. So let me tell you a little bit about him. We're going to jump right into the show. Dr. Jeremy Goldberg founded Long Distance Love Bombs, and it is his mission to make kindness cool, empathy popular, and compassion commonplace. He wants to make the world a better place than it was yesterday. And as part of that purpose, he writes articles, gives TED Talks, he sends out great emails, he hosts retreats and workshops, he coaches clients, and has a podcast. He's even written books and makes spoken word poetry videos. He's also active on Instagram and Facebook. You guys, this is a show you're going to love, and I'm so excited to have you hear the conversation I had with Dr. Jeremy Goldberg. Here we go. So welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast, Dr. Jeremy Goldberg.
Thank you for hosting me and having me. I'm stoked to meet you and can't wait to chat.
I know. I feel like, there's so much to talk to you about. I said to you, I pulled some talking points, which I'd never have this many. These are all the things that I could think of in 10 minutes to talk about. I was like,
that's amazing. That's like a typewritten full page of bullet points. Yesterday, I have my own podcast and I interviewed a guy and I held up like a Post-it note. And I'm like, I just have 6 words written down. So I hope this goes smoothly. Let's just see how this dance erupts.
Well, I normally don't do this, but I'm like, I really want to make sure we talk about this and that. And I'm like, okay, this is getting a little crazy because normally I don't even have a talking point, but hey, I want to make sure we get some good things in because you've got a lot to say.
I'm honored. Yeah. Hopefully this works out.
It will. So tell us about yourself for those people that might not know who you are. Tell us about who you are and what you do.
I'm a compassion cultivating, day making change agent, an empathy collecting, anti-quitting word wizard, and a ferocious never giver upper. I am a connoisseur and collector of fine silver linings. I'm a recovering scientist turned life coach, podcast host, spoken word poet. I founded a business called Long Distance Love Bombs that is all about making kindness cool and compassion commonplace. I rant and rave. I have a soapbox on Instagram. I have my own podcast, and I'm just trying to help make the world a little bit better than yesterday.
I felt like I needed to play music like that was a rap song. I wanted to start
Fun, right?
rapping.
It's a little different
It was so
because I
great.
rather than like I am a writer, I wrote a book, I have a degree. I was like, I want to have
No.
fun with this. I want to inject some personality and vibrancy into my description of my life.
Oh, well,
I
I
think
love
that's
it.
important.
So kindness and compassion, that's your thing. I
That's how it
listen.
started.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tell us that story. And is the story of how this all came to be from the airport story from your TED Talk?
Yeah, that's sort of the origin story of the brand and the biz that I like to tell. And essentially the short version is I was at an airport one day and I
Mhm.
was waiting for my flight to board and I was standing at the gate and I was kind of zoning out. And I think this was in the time before smartphones where you could actually experience boredom without distraction in your pocket. And I was kind of looking around and I noticed that there was this woman on the phone and she was sobbing and she was crying a lot. And it was kind of like an ugly cry, where there was
Mhm.
definitely some deep visceral experience occurring. And so I was kind of just watching her like, oh, dang, like she's going through some stuff. And she hung up the phone and then she sat there crying to herself. And I noticed that because we were at the gate of an airport, she was surrounded by a crowd of people staring at magazines and telephone screens and whatnot. And
Mhm.
I just felt terrible. And I felt this inner call to do something, but I didn't know what to do. And I'm just this guy and we're strangers. And so I took out a business card from my wallet and on the back of it, I wrote, "It'll be okay and you will be too." And
Mm.
then I walked over to her and I handed her the card
Mhm.
and I gave her a little pat on the shoulder. And I remember she looked up to me with this kind of confused, mid emotional breakdown stare. And I just turned away and I walked off and I never looked back and I boarded my flight. And that incident got me thinking about reality and
Mhm.
different possibilities for reality and why it's okay that we collectively just let people feel alone and isolated and lonely, even though they are immersed in a crowd. And wouldn't
Mhm.
it be cool if in a different world, in a different parallel universe, like Everything Everywhere All at Once style, if you've seen that film,
Yep.
that like she was offered hugs or children came and sang her a song or somebody sat down and said, "Do you want to talk?" And I just feel like that world is possible. And so I just started playing around with this idea of a kindness revolution. And I decided that I was going to start one. And I was so naive and I was ignorant enough about life that I just started trying some stuff. And I wrote little notes on cards and I left them everywhere I went. And I put them on windshield wipers and in the pile of potatoes at the grocery store and at restaurants. And I just started leaving these little love bombs everywhere. And I like the idea that I could try to encourage and inspire people serendipitously and randomly and
Mhm.
easily.
Love that. But it's turned into like this whole
I know.
revolution of like I remember
Ah,
when I
good
first saw it, I
job.
was like, love bombs, like narcissism love. Like I didn't, I was like,
I
oh my
know.
God. And then the more I
Like,
learned about you, I was like, oh, this is
that
different.
was so annoying because for my book, I had a publishing deal and we were going to call it Long Distance Love Bombs.
Yeah.
And at that time, there was no such thing as love bombing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there was such a thing as love bombing right when my book was about to go to publish. And so I had to change the title when it was a big discussion with the publisher. But love bombing is now this narcissistic, emotionally manipulative way of gifting people things with the intent of using them, manipulating them, etc. It's a really bad thing. So
Yes.
it's really not great for the brand when that occurred. And I remember being really frustrated of like, no, that shit wasn't even on the internet like a year or two ago. And no, you've taken it and now it's dirty and bad. But uh I've
Yeah.
moved through it.
Well, when people understand what you're actually doing, it's such a beautiful thing. And I can't imagine anyone like not even wanting to be part of what you're doing and start, when I listened to your TED Talk, and of course I followed you on Instagram for a long time, years. I was like, God, he's so great. I love what you're doing. Love it. But what happens? Well, you got to finish the story. It was a great story about the airport.
Yeah, so I just kind of boarded my flight and flew off, but then that sort of planted a seed of curiosity and desire in me, and I started writing articles online, and I started a Facebook page, and I started an Instagram account, and I just slowly started putting my words out into the ether of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And the craziest thing happened, which was that people read them and liked them and shared them. And I had a few like articles or blog posts go viral that really opened my eyes to the potential of the written word and my own
Mm.
creative pursuits as creating impact on the planet. And
Mm-hmm.
at the time I was a full-time PhD student, and I was in the cubicle. I was working for the Australian government. I had the collared shirt and the swipe card, and
Oh, wow.
I was living a different life. And this whole long distance love bombs project was kind of like a mistress on the side. It was a fun little hobby that, gave me a little pep in the step as I was grinding out my thesis. And
Wow.
eventually I mean, there's a series of stories we can get into, but I realized I was living my worst case scenario life, and I decided to buy a van and drive around America for 4 months rather than apply for career opportunities. And then at some point I decided I'm going to be a life coach and work on the internet, and I just went 100% into this wild love bomb internet coaching personal development thing and left my scientific career behind. And here
Wow.
we are.
Wow. What a story. Oh my gosh. So
It
what
was
kind of
wild.
so who do you see now? What kind of clients come to you and what are they working on?
I've seen everybody from psychologists to CEOs to
Mm,
Ironman champions to scientists and business owners. It's a pretty wide variety of individuals.
mm-hmm.
I've been very intentional about not trying to niche myself into,
Mm-hmm.
I work with 5-figure entrepreneurs named
Yeah.
Joe and help them transition into a fitness career and a taco business. So most of my work, I should say, during my PhD was around behavior change and understanding
Mm,
the dynamics of our belief system and motivation and our attitudes and how we can create strategic interventions with appropriate communication channels and messages.
mm-hmm.
So I'm very grounded in psychology, communication,
Mm-hmm.
sociology, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of integrated those lessons that I learned through my scientific career and my PhD research into the way that I work with individuals.
Mm,
And the main thing that I see and assist with is sort of the radical reorganization of our belief system, which I
mm-hmm.
think forms the foundation of how our lives occur. And
Yeah.
I believe that beliefs are choices.
Mm-hmm.
And so essentially, I'm like a choice doula, I suppose, or a cheerleader and champion, like helping people to really get clarity on who they are and what they
Mm,
want,
mm-hmm.
and then creating the identity and habits and rituals required to get them there.
Mm. Oh, I love that. So, okay, you give me some juicy things to talk about right here.
Let's
So
bring the juice.
forget these. These are going out the window. All my talking points here. Okay. I love these. I could you and I could talk for 3 days straight. Okay, so talk to me about who are we really? How do we
Who are
know?
we?
Yeah, like how do we know who we are?
Well, here's a quick story.
Yeah.
Years ago, I booked a somatic therapy session with a
Mm-hmm.
woman named Nicole Lowe's, who's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in Vancouver, and I went to her office and we had a little chit chat, and I was on defense and my edge because I knew what was happening. She's trying to make me trust her so that she could ask me difficult things and make me feel things. And at some point, she turned to me and very succinctly said something like, how do you know who you really are? How do you know what parts of you are leftover survival mechanisms from childhood? And how do you tell the difference?
Ooh.
And
Yeah.
I put my dropped jaw in my hands and stared at her and said, oh my God, I have no idea. But what a great question,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think I share that story because I believe that question is at the heart of your question, which is who are we deep down?
Yeah.
If you want to get mystical and esoteric, like what's our soul's calling?
Yeah.
Why are we here on the planet? What are we here to do? Who are we at a profoundly spiritual level? Versus what are the various disguises, masks, identities, survival mechanisms, coping strategies that we've adopted and claimed as our own, when in reality, those things aren't even ours. Or if they are, they were really great back then. And they helped us a lot way back when. But now, in this current moment, in this current situation, are they actually hindering our progress? Are they crutches? Are they obstacles to progress? And so that, I think, is the work. When we talk about the personal development industry, and when I joked about being a choice doula and whatnot, that's how I see it is, okay, you're the character in your own movie, but you're also the writer and you're the director and you're the editor, and you have a tremendous amount of agency and responsibility that perhaps you've neglected or never fully operationalized. So what are we going to do about that?
Yeah.
And let's get out the magnifying glass and take a look at how you're feeling and how your heart is going and what you want. And let's start getting some clarity and make some choices from that place. So I don't know. I wish I could just say, oh, I'm this and I'm that. But it's evolving. It's a masterpiece in progress. We're always under construction and beautifully imperfect. So I think that's this sort of second element of that, recognizing that you can accept and love yourself for exactly as you are, where you are, while concurrently desiring to improve, enhance, become something different.
I'm wondering this as you're talking. I'm like, I've seen clients for 20 some years, and I have to say, people may not know who they are, but they do know that they're not living the life that makes them happy. I don't like the word happy, peaceful, right? Or so they know that they're not living from their true self, to put it in the words we're using like right now. Like they're not living from that soul perspective. Something's off and they don't know what's going on, but they need help. And that's been really, my whole career has been the same kind of thing that you're talking about. Like I help people remove their masks. I help people break free of limiting beliefs. And that's how we know we're not living from that soul perspective, because there's an unhappiness, something, and I worked with a lot of people. I lived in Nashville for 13 years. I worked with a range of people from, not having a lot of money to having tons of money and famous people. And interestingly enough, they're all the same. We're all human and we all have the same exact problems, right? I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how many houses you have and all this. It was interesting to work with people that had all the things. I've got a house here, I've got a house there, I've got the kids, the wife, the whatever. Why am I so unhappy? What's wrong with me? Right? There's still something wrong. I'm still wanting to achieve. Why do I not feel good on the inside? And would you say and I think that that's the story that so many humans have. We're looking outside of self instead of going in here, right? But we're looking to live from that authentic or that true self or the soul perspective. To me, that means all the same thing. I don't know what you would say about that, but do you think that that's what's going on? Like we know more that we're not living there than when we are living there, at least in the beginning. when we're kind of waking up to all this.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people that I've worked with, and myself included, there can often be confusion or overwhelm at the very basic questions, such as, what do you want?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah.
Another thing that I like to do as a word dork is to ask people about the various meanings that they ascribe to certain words that are important, such as, how do you define success? Like, what is that to you? And is that actually aligned with your soul? And so for a lot of people, success is the white picket fence, the 2 cars, the 2 kids, the 6 figures, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that's great. And there's no judgment about any of that if that is genuinely what you want. But for a lot of us, we have been heavily influenced by our family systems, our cultural systems, society. And what we really want at this point in life, what success means to us in this particular moment might be, I just want to go live in the trees for a minute, or I just want to work as a vet tech, or I want to live in a van. For me, it was that. And that what was so difficult about that point in my life was I had a PhD and I had 10 years of experience on this career trajectory, and I'd made it. Like I was working for world-class scientists for the Australian government on the Great Barrier Reef, and I was getting paid and publishing paper. Like I was there. And at the same time, I was deeply burnt out and deeply unfulfilled and frustrated. And there was this kind of amorphous, indescribable blah in my system. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know what was creating it, and I didn't know how to address it. But what I did know was what I didn't want. And so sometimes if we're unclear about what we do want, we can approach that same thing from the opposite trajectory, right? Which is, what do you not want? And for me, I did not want to apply for jobs. I did not want to even read the words selection criteria. I did not want a government swipe card. I did not want a cubicle. The idea of another cubicle made me nauseous. And so I was able to make this list of the things that I did not desire. And then that, ironically, helped point me to the things that I really did want, which was, I want freedom. I want time in nature. I want no responsibility right now. I want to just go and fart around America and go touch trees and do all those things. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. But I do see a lot of this pervasive blahness in people.
Yeah.
And I think at the root of it is often, I mean, it's really hard to change the picture when you're living in the frame and read the label when you're in the bottle, all that stuff, which is why talking to coaches like you and therapists is so powerful, and helping people to get different perspectives about their life by asking hard questions and offering different ideas and solutions, as you know, is so transformative and incredibly powerful.
Yeah. You said something as far as going and living in your van. And I'm thinking this is, you listened to what was going on inside of you instead of looking outside of you for the answers. And inside you were hearing, go get a van, go live in the van, touch trees, go around the United States, or wherever you went, the United States for 4 months. Yeah. And that is how we find our way back to who we really are, right?
Yeah. So Michelle, the way that I describe this very simply is heart whispers and fear shouts. And
ooh, I like that.
I talk about heart whispers like, hey man, go buy a van and go drive around America and like go do some magic mushrooms in the forest and like go hike, go on hiking trails. And then my brain is like, the fear shouts, no, I can't do that. What will my parents think? How will I make money? That makes no sense. What will society think of me? I'll never get a job again. I'll be a loser bum. I'll live with my family forever and blah. So the fear is this big shouting and these things. And what I've learned over that ongoing discussion, which for me was like a year of trying to decide what to do. And I had
Mm.
anxiety and I was unwell.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so annoying to realize that these heart whispers, they don't stop. They just continue to be these little, psst, hey,
Mm-hmm.
remember I told you about that van idea last week? Like, psst, hey. And they just continue to offer a little finger on the shoulder of our soul, and they don't go away. And I
Yeah.
think what happens, and what I did and what I've seen in a lot of people, is that we push those heart whispers down and we hide them in the basement of our bodies, and we
Mm-hmm.
think they're out of sight, they're out of mind, that's gone, that's okay, I've moved past it. And when in reality, these things are repressed and they're not expressed, and that's to the detriment of our lives, but also to everybody around us and the world as a whole, because we are here to express our heart whispers and live vibrantly and do those things that make us fully alive. And for
Right.
me, that was a tremendously scary prospect. And it required a lot of courage and a lot of ongoing dialogue internally before I was able to radically accept my truth.
Mm.
Because I was so frustrated and so annoyed with my truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, come on. Like, can't I just get a job and like get the white picket? Can't I just make these good government paychecks? I don't want to go buy a rusted van and live in the forest and have uncertainty and all of this in my life. It would have been so much easier to just continue on that path because I had so much progress and
Mm.
momentum. I had so many connections. And another thing I often rant about is that I'm a writer, and writing is so hard. I would not wish it upon anybody. And it's so annoying that this is the thing that I'm supposed to do, because it's isolating and you just stare at a screen and it's difficult and frustrating, all these things. And God, couldn't I have just been something more simplistic? Like I have huge aspirations of being a plumber or a landscaper or a president. I don't know, something, but anything aside from writing, but it hasn't worked out that way. And
Yeah.
so more and more my job, to wrap this all up, I see it, is to simply become more adept at hearing those heart whispers and
Mm-hmm.
more courageous in terms of acknowledging and honoring and actioning them.
Mm. What if someone that's listening says, I don't have any heart whispers?
Yeah,
What would you
it's the
say?
common question. I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah. Like,
Really?
how do you hear that part of you?
Well, I always just call bullshit. Um, I would say so because it is a whisper,
Mm-hmm.
the the shouting fears might drown out those whispers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of chaos
Mm-hmm.
internal in our lives, and there's a lot of chaos external as well, in terms of
Right.
comparing people on social media, what our family and friends think, what our
Totally.
perceptions, our judgments. So the mind is really loud. Our brains are megaphones of fear,
Mm-hmm.
comparison, criticism, and judgment. And so my advice would be to get still and feel God. Like,
Mm-hmm.
seek solitude, find a way to quiet that stuff down, whether that's going for a walk in nature, whether that's cultivating a meditation practice, whether that's surfing or long showers or baths. Find some way to quiet the chatter of the mind and drop into what's going on in your body, and learn to cultivate that intuitive pull inward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think? Do you agree with that?
100%. I was just thinking the other day, I felt I had a lot of anxiety in my 20s and 30s. I don't have anxiety anymore. I know it's not that black and white. I certainly have moments and days now of anxiety sometimes, but I don't live with it like I used to. And the other day I was walking around and I was like, what the hell is going on here? Like I couldn't think straight. I had all those thoughts, like negative thinking. I'm like, what's going on? So I did everything for about an hour except sit down with myself. I'm like, well, let me go do this. And let me answer emails. And let me go, do a social, all the things. And then finally I did. I love that heart whispers and fear shouts. There is a lot of fear shouting at me, and comparing and the whole thing. And then I said, I'm just going to go sit down, because I kept hearing, sit down. go sit. I'm like, I don't want to sit. I don't have time. I've got too much to do. It was all that. And I finally did sit down. And so this is why I say, like, I really do practice what I preach. It just sometimes takes an hour for me to do it, but I did sit down. And it was interesting. I sat down and I saw this, like, I dropped right in to myself and my body. And I felt this heavy, dark hole, like right in front of my heart. It was heavy. And I said, okay, I wonder what this is about. And I just got quiet and just observed and stayed really curious. And this big thing on my heart, it just sort of sunk in like a sinkhole. And then it was gone. And I was like, oh, that was it. Like there was no, I didn't give it meaning. So, it didn't stick around. So I was like, maybe you just wanted my attention. And then I felt like putting my hands on my heart, giving myself some love. I had a few moments of thinking about gratitude. And when I tell you it was over and it lasted like, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, it was done. But for an hour, I was tortured. And so I absolutely align with everything you're saying. And it's slowing down, dropping in. Like, what is whispering? And then you're so right. You're so right. Someone asked me the other day, like, hey, what's the difference between intuition? How do you know when it's intuition and fear, or your ego or your mind? And excuse me, how do you know if it's intuition or your mind? I'm like, intuition doesn't come at you with all this fear and screaming at you, right? And it's the same thing. It's like, it's quiet. It's well paced. It will cheerlead you on, So, yeah, I definitely agree with you.
It's like this deeper kind of knowing, right?
Yeah,
The intuitive pull of like, do you want chocolate or do you want vanilla? It's like you don't overanalyze the heck out of that. And well, some people
right.
maybe do, of what is the color and what is the texture and where were these originated? And I wonder where the cacao beans were. It's like, I want chocolate. You just know,
Yeah.
right? And you just follow that intuitive choice. And I think more and more that becomes the process. And I completely relate to everything you described. And even everything that I'm saying out loud on this podcast, there is a small voice internally that is laughing and saying, oh, really? They should do that? Oh, really? That's how it works? Oh, that's adorable that you're sharing this, because I'm in it also, right?
Yeah.
And I'm reminded of this like meditation joke about if you don't have 5 minutes to meditate, then you need 5 hours.
Yes.
I,
Yeah.
I thought of that when you were saying that you're running around. Like, I don't have 2 minutes to sit down. But anyway, I'll figure out a way to spend an hour avoiding that 2 minutes. So I
Yeah.
have an hour to do it. But humanity, it's tough. It's tough,
It's
this adulting stuff.
it is really tough. And do you find someone just said this to me the other day? I was doing a live somewhere and someone said to me, gosh, Michelle, thanks for sharing what you just went through. I wouldn't think that would happen to you. Something, I think I might have even shared the black hole thing I was just talking about, or some other thing I was dealing with. And I said, well, yeah, I'm human. Like, what human doesn't? Now I'll say this. My earlier years, I did struggle with anxiety and depression. And I mean, I had suicidal thoughts in my 20s. Like, it was not pretty. And it was hard, but I don't live like that anymore. And no judgment on that old version of Michelle. I don't live like that anymore, though. Now I have tools and I know how to bring myself out of that. And I don't go that deep and dark anymore. So I think being human, though, it's quite normal and natural to have bad days, to have days where we're sad. Even sometimes you might have a couple depressed days. It's when it lasts a lot longer, that we have to maybe go and get help with it. But I don't think people understand that if you are someone that is in a teaching position, like say you and I are doing, or we have our own shows, that we too have bad days. It's quite human to have a bad day. Do you agree with that? What is your
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like two things to add to that. One, I don't trust people online who only show the sugar coated glitzy rainbow
Mm,
unicorn vibes. It's
yeah.
like, that's not real. That's not real life. And yeah, there's probably 1 in 1,000 that are just enlightened or switched on or whatever, but like, I don't
Yeah.
trust it. So exposing the shadow and the darkness and the reality of life helps me to build intimacy and connection with people. And I value that. So I appreciate that you and I are in the same boat there. And secondly, I used to joke that I spent so much time on rock bottom that I bought some property there. that I was gonna develop some land and maybe build a cozy apartment, you know? Like rather than just visiting and sleeping in the gutter or the street, I was like, no, rock bottom's nice. I'm gonna develop here. You know, I visit so often, I may as well have a place to call home. And so I completely understand and relate to that as well. And I think when I was going through some darker times and in the past, especially, you know, when I talked about that choice that I had to make between abandoning my science career and buying a van and trying this internet coaching thing, like that was an ongoing internal battle for about a year.
Mm,
And writing a PhD thesis at that time was also really difficult. It turns out PhDs are really hard.
yeah.
And I was in a relationship at that time that ended up not ending in a great way. And it was really challenging. And, you know, I got cheated on and I was trying to
Oh.
navigate all of these really difficult things. And uh, so I get it. Yeah. Been to rock
Mm.
bottom, got the t-shirt, fully understand and appreciate what that
Yeah.
feels like. And one way that I've helped myself through that is to try to zoom out at the trajectory of my life and
Mm,
realize that, you know, I might be having a down day or a down week or a blip on the map, but when I zoom out, the things are going in a positive curve. Like I'm
mhm,
better than I used to be. I know more than I used to. I have more fulfilling relationships than I used to. Like things are going well overall. And I think that I ignore that at my peril,
mm,
literally.
mhm.
Or that I can zoom out and recognize that. And as you say, cultivate and develop a toolkit where now I can turn inward and be like, okay, what do I need right now? Do I need to phone a friend like that game show? Like,
Yes.
do I need a bath? Do I need to smash a pillow? Am I just hungry? Do I need a
Yeah.
nap? Like, what's going on? And so that awareness practice, I think, is an ongoing thing for me for sure.
That's so huge. So what do you think is that I've got a big question for you because I love reading about this and I want your opinion on this because I like
You
your
have a twinkle
comment.
in your eye right now. It looks a
I
little
do. I'm
like
like this.
devious
I'm
to
like,
those
woo,
listening.
let me ask you this question. So here's a fun one. What is the ego?
What is the ego?
Yeah. What is our ego?
It's so interesting. Yeah, I've pondered this in terms of because I'm big on meditation, and that's kind of
Yeah.
my modality that I have found the most benefit from. And this idea that there's a voice in my brain
Yeah.
that I can hear,
Yeah.
and so if I can hear it, who's speaking it? And if it's me speaking it, where's that coming from? And
Yeah.
why is that guy such a jerk sometimes? And I don't get it.
Yeah.
There's and now when I pay really close attention and the more awareness I cultivate, it's not even one voice. There's like an entire board of directors. And the board of directors runs my life. And sometimes there's a member of the board that is just really loud and he has the microphone and he doesn't let anybody else talk. And he's put masking tapes on the voice of all the other people, the nice people, the kind
All,
ones.
all the
What's
positive
that
people.
about? And then it's like, well, hang on, it's not even a board of directors. There's like a whole village in there. Like I am a complex weirdo composite of all these different identities and personalities. So, what is an ego? I think it's like the village internally
Hmm.
that is attempting in the best way possible to continue our existence
Mm,
and trying to protect our DNA so that it gets passed on to the next generation.
yeah.
And I mean, depending how mystical and irreverent you want to make this, like, is it the collective unconscious operationalized? Is it so? I wrote this thing years ago that um, that every night I look up is a family reunion. It's like a
Mm,
conscious communion with something far more mystical and magical than we'll ever know. Like we're all
mm.
stardust on a sphere floating around a ball of fire in vast infinite nothingness. And it's like
Yeah.
And I'm stressed out about this little voice in my head telling me that I don't look good in a t-shirt. Like, what? What is this? What is happening right now? I don't know. I think the ego gets a bad rap
Yeah.
in the personal development industry. I think it's like, oh, you're so egoic, or that's my ego, and my ego is an asshole. But also, like, the ego is the thing that is responsible for taste
Mm-hmm.
and motivation and personality and judgment and all of these wonderful things that we need for our identity and survival. And so I think that rather than attempting to eradicate the ego, it's more about befriending that little buddy,
Yeah.
trying to understand them, him, her, they. I don't know the pronouns of the ego actually, but you know what I'm getting at, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm also thinking about all of our parts. We have these internal parts. So are our internal parts from the ego, or is that something different? I
Right?
know. I know. I contemplate this. This is the kind of thing I sit around and think about. I got to tell you, Jeremy. It's
Yeah.
like,
Same. And
it's like,
to
because I want to figure it out.
yeah, and I think I don't know, I kind of view life as a choose your own adventure story.
Yeah, I do
And
too. I do
I view
too.
identity as an expression of different actions that are based upon beliefs that I choose.
Yeah.
And so from that context, I view the ego almost like a sidekick or a
Mm-hmm.
getaway driver,
Mm-hmm.
or like a like an accomplice. Like,
Yeah.
hey, we got some magic to make and we got a limited time and we have radical responsibility and anything's possible. And what do we want to do? Who do we want to be?
Right.
And how do we want to do it?
I'm
And
with you. I don't think we have to eradicate the ego. And I've had some teachers that say we have to get rid of it. I'm like, yeah, I don't agree. I'm with you.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
I kind of like the ego at times. Like, it feels good to feel good. It feels good to look good. Like, I
yeah.
like those parts of my ego, and they give me pride and they give
Mm-hmm.
me direction and motivation for my actions. And I think where it gets a little bit problematic is when the ego's not paying attention to some of the other voices that are a little bit more compassionate, kind, bigger
Mm-hmm.
picture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So what about limiting beliefs? That's something that you work with your clients. It's something that people might come to you for. Like, what do we, because limiting beliefs, would you say most of them are kind of planted by the age of 6? Or do we accumulate them throughout our lifetime? 'Cause so much of our adult roadmap, it's done. Like you're 6, it's done, honey. Like I what's your belief on this? I want to know what you believe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. I'm just smiling huge to those listening because this is such a nutritious topic and such a juicy conversation, right? And yeah, I mean, this is a little bit outside my pay grade in terms of childhood development, etc. But
Uh-huh.
it's undeniable that your upbringing affects your life. It affects
Yeah.
your nervous system. It
Yep.
affects the ways that you see the world around you. It affects the way that you learn about love and
Mhm.
relationship and connection and safety.
Yep.
And so there is a tremendous foundation built in your early years by your early life experiences and those who are around you, helping you to not die, essentially.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the limiting beliefs, I think, are these leftover remnants when I mentioned earlier about survival mechanisms versus the real you.
Mm-hmm.
And the phrase, what got you here won't get you there, comes to mind. And so
Mm-hmm.
what got me here were all of these wonderful definitions, beliefs, behaviors, and they got me through childhood and they got me
Mm-hmm.
through my teenage years and they got me to be an adult.
Yeah.
And if I have clarity and desires around this person that I want to become that don't align with those things, then what got me here won't get me there. And again, this is such a frustrating thing to realize that I continually battle against. It's like, integrity is so annoying. Integrity is when your values and your actions aligned and you do what you say you're going to do and you are proud of your life. And gosh, it's so much unpacking to explore and feel the childhood stuff, the leftover stuff, and to realize how much of who we are is actually outdated,
I know, isn't it?
antiquated. Like, what?
I
Need a
know.
renovation.
I use this an analogy, like imagine driving around with a map, trying to without your phone, right? With a paper map from when you were 6 years old, and you're trying to navigate a city with a map. So go back to whenever you were 6 years old. That's how we're trying to navigate as an adult. It's like it's outdated. Like we have to update it so we can function.
I picture like if I was wearing like bright orange corduroy bell bottoms or something, and I was just wearing them, and I was going through my life,
With a plaid
then
shirt.
yeah, with the plaid shirt and like the big gold chain from the 70s. If I was just like that, if I was just that guy.
Yeah.
And then I come and I have a session with you and we talk and we make these breakthroughs. And then I realize for the first time where you're like, hey, look down. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm wearing orange corduroy bell bottoms and a plaid shirt and this wild gold. I've never even noticed that before. I've never seen that. Why am I doing that? And then I look around, or through further discussion, I realize, oh, there's a different style now. Like there are things called department stores. I can swap my pants out. What kind of pants do I really want? Right. And so this is like a metaphor for what limiting
It's
beliefs
so
are to
true.
me. It's like you don't know until you know. But then once you know, you can't unknow it. You can't unsee it. You can't unfeel it. It's like, dang, I do have orange corduroy bell bottoms on
with the long collar, the really long
the
pointy
John
collar.
Travolta, and like,
John
wow,
Travolta.
I do that, huh? Okay, where did I learn that? Where did I buy that? Who told me that those are cool? Does everybody else that I hang out with also have orange bell bottoms on? And oh my gosh, I'm seeing that too. And so the orange bell bottoms, to just attempt to clarify this little tangential rabbit hole, is like synonymous with a limiting belief around money, or that rich people are evil, or that emotions are bad, or that anger is to be repressed and not expressed, or that whatever, that it's okay to lie, that infidelity is okay. So all of these things are beliefs that we may or may not realize that we have, in the same way that we may or may not realize our outfit because we've never paid attention to it, or we've never had somebody help us to really appreciate and understand what's going on.
What's your favorite way, or do you have a favorite way, or one way that you could share with the audience today? And I like the analogy of like, oh wait, I can go to the department store and I can change this outfit, and wait, do you wear these pants? No one else here. Like, what's going on? What about, can you give them, the audience, something that, like, a takeaway, like what's something they can do today if they realize, like, wait a minute, I might be having the results of this reality because I have this belief that I didn't even know that was limiting. And money is such a great one. Money's the root of all evil. If you have money, then you're arrogant. If you, whatever, there's so many things around money. But what's something that people could do today that could help them start to shift that limiting belief on anything?
Good question. You're good at this game. I feel like you should start a podcast. And it would be
I
quite
just like to
successful.
talk. You know what? I love people, and I love to talk, and I love to ask questions. I think humans are fascinating. So it's kind of easy. It's fun.
So I think one thing that I do with any new client that comes to work with me is essentially to do an audit of where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
An audit of where they're at and an audit of where they want to go.
Yeah.
And so clarity to me is a big one.
Yeah.
Because you can't really change anything until you understand what the material
Yeah.
is present,
That's a
right?
great idea.
And
Yes.
so a way to start, to those listening, is an audit of your current experience in the different areas of your life. And where are you resentful?
Mm.
Where do you feel shame? Where are you really unhappy?
Yeah.
And then the alternative side is, where are you completely lit up? Where are you 10 out of 10 energy? Where are you an A plus? Where are you so stoked you can't even believe it? Right. And so I think leaning to the extremes can be helpful in terms of removing the clutter of the middle, the clutter
Yeah.
of the like, I don't know. And one really fun trick that you can use from Tim Ferriss is rank things from 1 to 10, but you can't use 7. And
Oh,
so what this does is it forces you from an 8, 9, or a 10,
yeah.
or it forces you to a 6 or below, because it's very easy to be like, meh, 7.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't use 7, or maybe you can't even use 6.
I
So is
like
it a
that.
5 or below, or is it an 8 or
Yeah.
above? Right. And so identifying with some clarity, where are you at?
Yeah.
And then also, where do you want to go? What's your big dream?
Yeah. That's really
How
good.
how aligned with you, or how aligned is your life with the person you want to be and the life you want to be living?
Yeah.
And that can be really confronting. So I encourage those listening to have compassion and grace
Mm.
and a lot of gentle nurturing through this process, because it can feel really hard at times.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's about looking inward, like, ooh, like what? I
Yeah.
got to go inside. I invite people also to, and I love what you said, to look at their patterns. When you keep getting let go from the same job, or you want to keep quitting your jobs, or relationships keep ending because X, Y, and Z keep happening. It's the same thing. That's so interesting. I wonder why this is happening. We need to look inward again and ask ourselves, okay, what belief do I have that's creating this reality in front of me? Because I got to look at it instead of, again, pointing outside of self, like, well, it's my boss's fault, it's my partner's fault, it's so and so, right?
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. And relationships are a really big university for personal
Right.
development, let's
Yeah.
say. Um, yeah, so who am I blaming,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who am I
Yeah.
who am I really jealous of? Who really triggers me? Why am I annoyed by them? And you can
Yes.
start to use that as a breadcrumb to understand what's really going on below,
Yeah.
right? And so, for example, if very expressive, jubilant
Mm.
people sharing their hearts and souls online is triggering, then
Hmm.
maybe there is some envy there where you wish you could be as expressive and jubilant and outgoing as them. And maybe you repress those things in yourself. It's just like
Hmm.
one example, right, of what you
Yeah.
can start to play around with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And only because we're so quick to go, it's their fault, they're the bad. No, no, no. It's important that we look inside. Okay. Well, gosh, what else did we
We
miss?
hit
Anything?
did we hit
Did we?
all the bullet points?
I
Did
think we.
did you have
I
on
don't
your
even know what the hell's on the bullet
did
points.
you
Let's see.
it would be great if you had orange corduroy bell bottoms on there. It was like, bingo, nailed it.
Yes, I did. No, I no. We didn't even go over the talking points. We don't. I didn't think we'd
Oh,
need them,
good.
but I wanted to ask you some good things, and I think I did. I feel like I did. You had some beautiful answers, and right off the bat, hitting us up with your beliefs about true self and getting into the van and sharing whispers of the soul and how to listen. Like such great ideas, and how to live a, what would you call it? A better life sounds so boring. What is it? It's
Yeah,
a,
like one way I've described that is, I think a lot of people chase happiness instead
yeah.
of allowing wholeness.
Ooh, that's good.
And so for me, I have found reluctantly, again, because it's pretty annoying,
Mm-hmm.
that living a more whole life, the shadow, the dark, the sadness, the
Yes.
grief,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of those quote unquote negative flavors
Mm-hmm.
provides so much more to the dish. And
Yeah.
so I would just encourage all of us to attempt to seek wholeness rather than happiness.
Yeah, and I think I said that right at the beginning of the show. I don't like the word happiness because to me, and I agree with you, happiness to me feels like spiky. It's like, oh, I got a new car, I got a new outfit, or what I got a new whatever, golf clubs, whatever the heck it is. It's like, yay, it makes me happy, but you can't sustain it. Like it'll spike and it drops, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
right?
It's like the sugar coating. It's like that. I just picture a donut and like that hot pink glaze on a donut. And you're
Yeah.
like, that's good, but like I don't want to eat that all the time. That just seems hard. And so for me as a word dork, I think of other options or opportunities such as fulfillment or
Yes.
joy or
Yeah, that's a good one.
pleasure.
Yes.
Like like these things, they have weight and they have mass. And when I say live a pleasure filled, joyful, you know, fulfilled life versus live a happy life. It's like, like
No.
I want the depth and the dirt and the dark. Like bring me the whole buffet. Like
Yes.
when I'm on my deathbed, when I'm looking back over the decades of experience, like I want to have slurped the marrow from all of it.
Yes.
I want to know all of it. I don't want just the pink frosting flavored life, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I love all of your metaphors. They're really, I love them. I think
This is
that the
just
bell
how,
bottom
thank you.
chords are the best. The orange chords are the
Like this is
best.
just like my brain just works that way. And I
Yeah, I
think
love
it
it
comes
though.
through like in a lot of my writing also. I think
Yeah.
some people find it more relatable because when you talk about things like codependency or feelings or repression or all these things, it's like, yeah, I get it, and it's academic, and there are certain definitions that are definitely a vibe for sure, but for me
Mm-hmm.
it's like I can't quite picture that or
Mm.
integrate that into my system without some kind of weird visual or analogy. And
Yeah.
so I think because humans are meaning making machines and we rely upon story for culture and understanding, that
Mm-hmm.
the more perspectives that we can get on all of these topics, the better. And so hopefully, I mean, if you're still listening to this after however long it's been, if I didn't lose you at the bell bottom story or the pink donut story, like I applaud you and well done. A gold star.
I think this was awesome. I thank you so much for being on. Where would people find you?
So the most active place is Instagram for me,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
at long distance love bombs. If you
Mm-hmm.
are not tired of my voice, I also have a podcast called the Long Distance Love Bombs Podcast. And I wrote a book and I do coaching, I do workshops and events. I like to joke that I have the whole personal development starter package. Like I got the nose ring, I got the book, I got the Instagram
Wait
account.
a minute.
Like,
What the heck did you call the book? Because you couldn't call it Long Distance Love
yeah.
Bomb. So what'd you call
Yeah.
it?
You know
What
what's so great about that is looking back, it's the best. It's the best thing because
mm,
it really, we got to a place where I was going back and forth with the graphic designer and the book covers, and we had iteration on iteration,
oh
etc.
wow.
So what we settled on after much annoyance and angst from me individually, because I was stoked on the book and we had the cover and it was done. Like we
Oh
had got
wow.
there. And then
Wow.
last minute the owner was like, no, we can't do this because when you Google it, it comes up as narcissistic abuse, and that's not good for the
Yeah,
brand of
no.
the book. Which I
Definitely
like,
not.
yeah, fair enough. But so we ended up calling it It'll Be Okay and You Will Be Too. And
Oh, oh, I love that.
the cover of the book is my literal writing on a post-it note that is just like sort of stuck to the cover. And it goes back to that
Oh,
origin
yeah,
story and
in the
all of
airport.
so it's
Oh,
come
that's
full circle and it's great and it's
oh, I
white and it's
love
small.
it.
But the book, if I may, the book is super cool because the pages are perforated. And so
Mm.
they're designed to be torn apart and shared and framed and gifted to people and left behind. And so
Oh.
they've been quite popular at places like dentists or doctors' offices or
Mm-hmm.
Airbnbs. My buddy has an Airbnb and he says people keep stealing the book, which I love.
Dang.
But yeah, that's where you can find me. I mean, I've got anywhere long distance love bombs, except for Twitter because some knucklehead took that handle years ago.
Oh,
And I'm still not over it, Michelle.
I'm sorry.
Come on, you didn't think of that. That was mine. Give it back.
It's so annoying. I know what that is
So
like.
annoying.
Let me tell you,
Yeah.
I do know what that's like. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good.
Well, this was amazing. Really, thank you for being on and thank you for your vulnerability and all that you're doing in the world because we really do need more kindness and compassion in the world. So thank you for all that you do for the whole world.
Thank you for having me. And right back at you.
Thank you.